Hey there, vinyl community YouTubers and all my music loving friends. It's MGK Boston Mike back with my third video. I'm on a roll here. 3 weeks in a row. I've been getting a lot of great feedback, so I'm going to persevere and make some more. So today, my main focus is going to be sing, sing, sing. That being my favorite vocalists, some of them anyway. I'm going to leave some out. I can only go on so long. I'm trying to keep these videos down to around 20 minutes. So that said, we better get going here. So first off, the great Chrissie Hynde. There she is, right there. Interesting backstory. She came from Akron, Ohio. A lot of people think she's British. She moved to London, England in the mid-70s to pursue a music career. She wrote for a short time for the magazine New Musical Express, and she actually worked also at Malcolm McLaren's Sex Boutique in London, where the Sex Pistols hung out, and it was the burgeoning punk scene was going on there. And then she eventually formed the Pretenders in 1977, I believe. This was their debut self-titled release, Pretenders 1, it's called in some circles. Take the sleeve off and get rid of some of that gloss. There's the band right there, and there she is. This was released in 1978, and it was actually produced by Nick Lowe, formerly of Rockpile, and a great musician in his own right. Some of the highlights here, of course, Precious, Tattooed Love Boys, the Ray Davies song Stop Your Sobbing. Ray Davies of the Kinks, I believe he wrote that. And there they are, Pretenders 1, featuring the great Chrissie Hynde, 1978. The follow-up, just called Pretenders 2, simply enough. Here they are. There's no writing on the front, just the photo, and of course on the back, Pretenders 2. Chrissie Hynde and her lead guitarist James Honeyman Scott were really amazing songwriters together, but Honeyman Scott, as well as the bass player James Farndon, seemed to be both going through a nasty time with drug addiction during this period. This album came out in '81, the follow-up to the debut. So both Farndon and Honeyman Scott struggled with cocaine and heroin addictions, doing both drugs simultaneously, unfortunately leading to both of their untimely deaths prior to their next release that I'll get into in a moment. Some of the highlights from this one, of course, Message of Love is on here, Talk of the Town, English Roses, Louie Louie. It's really great. There's a shot of the band on stage on the back. Chrissie Hynde out front. She played rhythm guitar for the band. Just really, really, really good stuff. I mean, this second album isn't as good as the first one, but again, consistency-wise, it's definitely worth getting. Pretenders 2. The follow-up, in my opinion, their best. This was released in '83. This is Learning to Crawl. So she still had drummer Martin Chambers in the band. There he is down front. The names of the two replacements for Honeyman Scott and Farndon escape me. It doesn't really matter. They were accomplished session guys that Chrissie Hynde had picked up to continue where they left off with the Pretenders 2 album. So Learning to Crawl, I mean, this is really, again, one of those records, front to back, every track. It's a must. Middle of the Road kicks it off with that. Back on the Chain Gang, Show Me, Thumbelina. Of course, the song you always hear Christmas time, 2,000 Miles, that's a slow one. Thin Line Between Love and Hate's a great ballad. This is really great. I bought all of these at the time when they came out, when I was a young lad, and they're all in pretty mint condition, amazingly. All on the Sire record label. So there you have it. Pretenders. Learning to Crawl. This compilation came out '87. This came out. This is basically a synopsis of their first 10 years as a band. Of course, just called the singles. They're all here. I mean, Stop Your Sobbing, Kid, Brass and Pocket, Talk of the Town, Middle of the Road, Thin Line Between Love and Hate. And there's an additional track on here. Here at the back, you can see there's just some shots of all the 7-inch singles and whatnot from the band. I don't know if you could see that there. There was an additional track on this singles package. It was a cover of the Sonny and Cher song, I Got You Babe. Did that with Campbell, was his last name, the lead singer, it was with UB40, the reggae pop band also from England at the time. They did that duet together, and it's really good. It does justice to the Sonny and Cher original. I Got You, Babe. Again, Pretenders, the singles. If you don't buy the first couple albums and you get this, you're all set. Everything's here, all the essentials. So again, Chrissie Hynde, one of my favorite female vocalists. Excellent, excellent stuff. I didn't really follow them too much after that period. They're still playing together. I saw them do a couple of songs on the Jules Holland BBC television program 2 or 3 years ago, and she still sounds great. And they still put out records into the 2000s, and they're going to tour once this COVID stuff's over again. So it's a band I would like to see, if not just for her. I think she's really terrific. Moving on, I'd like to talk a bit about Bryan Ferry. We got these in the wrong order. Let's see here. Here we go. Yeah. All right. So Bryan Ferry was the lead vocalist with art rock band. I guess you call them art rock. They were kind of out of the school of David Bowie, fashion, art incorporated in the music. And Brian Eno was actually in the first incarnation of Roxy Music in the early 70s. Bryan Ferry was, of course, the lead vocalist. Here he is solo. Another Time, Another Place. This came out in 1974. He takes a bunch of classic originals. He likes to do covers, and he gives it his own kind of proto-Lounge Lizard stamp, if you will. Always a sharp-dressed guy with the suit and tie. Here he is on the cover, the handsome devil that he was. Dated Jerry Hall for a number of years, actually. I don't know if she's on the back. He sometimes would feature photos of Ms. Hall in the artwork. So again, Another Time, Another Place. Of course, this kicks off with the In Crowd. Smoke Gets in Your Eyes is on this. Willie Nelson covers a Willie Nelson song, Funny How Time Slips Away. Sam Cooke song, What a Wonderful World. He does a great version of that. Again, Another Time, Another Place, Bryan Ferry, 1974. Speaking of his relationship with Jerry Hall, they never married, but they were a couple for a number of years. When they split, she, of course, left him for someone you may have heard of, Mick Jagger. He wrote this, did this album rather, The Bride Stripped Bare. Always featuring the models, a little drama. You know, I don't know what's going on there with the snake and the model on the slab there. Here he is on the inside. Kind of cool gatefold looking down. So this was released in 1978. It's kind of melancholy, but good nonetheless. There's a cover of the Al Green song, Take Me to the River on this that was later made popular by the Talking Heads, of course. J.J. Cale song on this called Same Old Blues. And Velvet Underground song called What Goes On is also on this. The Bride Stripped Bare, 1978 release. And the great Bryan Ferry. Sounds great. Moving into the 80s. This was, he took a long stretch there between albums. Boys and Girls, this came out in 1985. Mr. Ferry, he was releasing records concurrently while Roxy Music was still together all through the 70s. I should make note of that. I'll show a couple of their albums after I'm done with his solo stuff. Yeah, he's one of those artists. He liked to kind of do his own path and then go back to his main band and do both concurrently and tour separately. And he was very successful in doing just that. Again, this came out in 85. Boys and Girls. Some of the tracks on this, of course. Stone Woman, the title track, Boys and Girls. Slave to Love. Don't Stop the Dance. Windswept. And Sensation's a real good dance number on this. Of course, he played at Live Aid. I'll mention, and Live Aid always comes in any conversation where you're talking about the 80s. Anybody of note was there, and he did a short set there, 3 or 4 songs at Wembley. It's good. It's on YouTube. You can look it up. But yeah, really excellent. Bryan Ferry, Boys and Girls. His follow-up to that, I believe this was in, what year is this? 87, yeah. This is Bête Noire. I actually saw this tour in Ottawa that summer, 1988, at the old Lansdowne Park. It was an outdoor venue. It was a perfect summer night. Pretty full house, actually. he was quite popular in Canada at the time as well. Of course, this kicks off with Limbo, Kiss and Tell. The Right Stuff is on this. The Name of the Game is an excellent ballad. There he is. Bryan Ferry. And on that note, from the Mike Kelly Summer Collection from 1988, here is my shirt from that tour. You can see it. Bête Noire. And where you can see, there's Ottawa right there. August 21st, 1988. Wow, time flies. Bête Noire tour. Great show it was. This is just a 12-inch single that he did. He did a song for a movie called Legend. You can see right there. It was I didn't see this movie at the time. Featured a very young Tom Cruise was in this. I just really like the song, Is Your Love Strong Enough? This is just a 12-inch single. This is some character from the movie. I think it was some kind of fantasy plot. I'm not sure what it was really about, that movie, but it's just a great song. Nonetheless, Is Your Love Strong Enough? Again, 12-inch single from 1986. And Roxy Music, the band. This is an album called Flesh and Blood. This was released in 1980. I don't have a lot of the Roxy stuff on record from the 70s. I kind of picked up on them 78, 79. And of course this release is one of my favorites, again released in 1980. This does, again, just like Bryan Ferry himself, Roxy Music also would do some cover versions. On this, featuring the Byrds, 8 Miles High, they do a version of that. In the Midnight Hour, that's a Wilson Pickett song. Of course, though, some of the originals on this, Same Old Scene, My Only Love, Over You is just incredible. If you haven't heard it, look it up again. Over You, Oh Yeah is excellent. Of course, Same Old Scene, that's an excellent track as well. Again, they always feature the supermodels. There's a couple of beauties on the cover there. Again, 1980, Flesh and Blood, really excellent. The follow-up to that, they did, called Avalon, was released in 82. I used to have a copy of that on record. A couple of houses ago, we had a minor flood in our basement rec room, and I lost, and that was one of the casualties. I lost that, and I haven't replaced it. So I'm one of those people, I don't buy records online. I go to record shops, and I just haven't seen a copy of it. When I was thinking about making this video, I'm going to keep an eye out for it because it's a really excellent album. But Avalon was released in 82, the follow-up to Flesh and Blood, and it's worth seeking out. But all is not lost from that tour for Avalon. This is a live EP recorded in 1982 in Glasgow, Scotland. It only features 4 songs, but they're super great songs they are. There's 2 originals on here, Can't Let Go and My Only Love. And there's 2 real killer covers on here. There's Like a Hurricane, the Neil Young song. This really does justice to Neil's song. It's really excellent. And of course, the John Lennon song, Jealous Guy. Bryan Ferry is just such a great vocalist. Of course, that's why I'm doing this video and featuring him. He can take someone else's song, and that's in my mind a really great vocalist that can interpret someone else's music and not their own, and make it their own, and make it worthwhile. And he was always capable of doing just that. And again, no, I use the word was. Bryan Ferry is still with us and still recording. I don't have a lot of his later output, but I would see him live again. He is, I believe, in his early 70s, but again, he's still singing and he still sounds pretty good. And that's a live EP, just called The High Road. Yeah. Again, 1983. Roxy Music. And this is just a compilation from their 70s stuff on Atlantic. Of course, it's called The Atlantic Years. This came out in 83. Of course, featuring another beauty on the cover. And this has, all the hits are here. Dance Away, Angel Eyes, Over You. Of course, Love is the Drug. Everybody knows that. In the Midnight Hour, again, that Wilson Pickett song I mentioned earlier is on here. And Do the Strand. Some of their artsy or stuff from their early years. Do the Strand is a really early song, as well as Love is the Drug. That's from some of the earlier stuff in the early to mid 70s. But again, if you're not a completist and you just want to get a taste of Roxy music, I know this is available as well on compact disc. the Atlantic Years, in '83, this compilation. So, moving on. Next. Speaking of the ladies, there she is, the great Linda Ronstadt. Originally from Arizona, she relocated to the Los Angeles area in the mid-'60s to make it in the music world, and she lived around LA County, I think particular up in Laurel Canyon, where there was a burgeoning folk rock scene going on. She hung out with J.D. Souther and Don Henley, of course, and the Eagles. Everybody knows that they were eventually her backup band. She was not their backup band, it was reversed. She was a true talent. So there she is. Her original band was called the Stone Ponies. They put out a couple of albums. This is the second one. It was released in 1967. Only one minor hit on this. They were a three-piece, as you can see, Robert Kimmel and this other guy, Kenneth Edwards. The only hit on this was Different Drum. You probably know that, to the beat of a different drum, blah, blah, blah. You've heard the song. It was a minor hit. Didn't do very well, but this is still a pretty good listen, regardless. Again, Evergreen, this is called. But beyond Different Drum, Back on the Street Again is a good track. Song About the Rain is nice. Really mellow, folky. No tinges of country yet in her style. But just that nice 60s kind of psychedelic, folky, very peaceful, nice music for a Sunday afternoon. And this was the follow-up. At this point, the other two guys had split. Just the band didn't do very well, but I bet you they kicked themselves later on. She still had an obligation to the label. She was with Capitol on this one. So she put this album out and collaborated. There's a number of different people on this album, including Tim Buckley. He actually wrote a couple of songs on this. What was the Hobo was the Tim Buckley original on this one. And actually, when you look here, this is at a house, I guess, up in Laurel Canyon. A bunch of the, the cool people at the time. And if you look hard enough there, you can see there's Tim Buckley right there. Handsome devil there. Don't know if they were a couple at the time. They hung out. He wrote a couple songs for her. And he passed at a very young age, as most of you musicologists out there know. Tim Buckley died at a young age, unfortunately. But again, this album has of course, Hobo is a really excellent song, the Tim Buckley song. Wings is another Tim Buckley original on here. Mike Nesmith wrote Some of Shelley's Blues is on here. Merry-Go-Round, Love as a Child by Steve Gillette. Yeah, this is really good. I prefer this one to the Evergreen album that I just showed. If not just for the song Hobo, that's such a really beautiful song. Anyway, Stone Ponies, released in 1968. So following that, she went completely solo. The obligations, the contract with Stone Ponies was over with the label, I guess. And she's still on Capitol here. This was her solo debut. This is called Hand Sewn Homegrown. This is released in 1969. 90% of it wasn't written by her, but she covers everybody here. Randy Newman's he wrote a song on here. Bet No One Ever Hurt This Bad. Of course, she does Bob Dylan's Baby You've Been on My Mind. That's a really great version. Another Bob Dylan song on here, I'll Be Your Baby Tonight. Break My Mind is on here. That's even got tinges of, kind of sounds like the Flying Burrito Brothers a bit, that song to me, Break My Mind. If you like the Flying Burrito Brothers, you would actually like this album. It's kind of got a Graham Parsons vibe to it. There she is. It looks like she's hanging out in the backyard at her hippie house in Laurel Canyon. There she is. Hand sewn, homegrown. Definitely worth seeking out. And then the follow-up to that, Silk Purse. There she is, getting back to the farm, it looks like. She went to Nashville and did this album, and it's got a little more country tinge to it. There's a steel guitar thrown into the mix. But she doesn't lose, despite the fact this was recorded in Nashville, she doesn't really lose her West Coast sensibilities, if you will, on this. But it's a great follow-up to the debut. Some of the highlights on here, Lovesick Blues. Of course, Long Time is a beautiful ballad. Definitely worth seeking out. Look that up later if you don't believe me. Long Time. Louise is a good song. Will You Love Me Tomorrow? Just really, really good stuff here. Cover's kind of bizarre, but gets the point. I guess she was trying to go a little more country, so there she is in the country on a farm. Anyway, yeah, Silk Purse. A couple of other albums were released in between. I don't have. Fast forward a bit here. Heart Like a Wheel, a couple of years later, after Silk Purse. Silk Purse, of course, was 1970. This is 1974. Of course, at this point, she was pretty much a superstar. On this album, Heart Like a Wheel, at this point, she picked up a couple of Grammys, of course, and everybody plays on this. I mean, You're No Good is the kickoff track on this. Of course, the title track, Heart Like a Wheel, the Phil Everly song. Phil Everly, of course, from the Everly Brothers, When Will I Be Loved? She does a great cover of that. Willin', I mentioned last week, Little Feat in my last video. That's a Lowell George song. She does a great version of that. Heart Like a Wheel, 1974. The great Linda Ronstadt. And lastly, with Linda, this was released in 77. It's called Simple Dreams. There she is on the cover, looking great. Back in the mirror, there she is. Kind of in her dressing room backstage, it looks like they're trying to do here. She had, at this point, she switched over. She was on Asylum Records, Electra Asylum. Of course, on this one, you've got It's So Easy, Simple Man, Simple Dream. Poor, Poor, Pitiful Me is on here. Of course, she does a cover of the Rolling Stones' Tumbling Dice. That's excellent. Yeah, so Simple Dreams, really good. Again, 1977. So beyond that, I have a box set. I'm not going to show that. That's on compact disc with a bunch of live outtakes and stuff like that. And that's it. She has an album she did in Spanish before her health deteriorated. I believe she's suffering with Parkinson's disease at this point and was forced into retirement. But really an excellent talent and a lot of great output through the years. Just, again, one of my favorite vocalists, the great Linda Ronstadt. So, as far as bigger catalogs, I'm done with showing a bunch of the same stuff of artists today. I'm going to just feature some one-offs at this point. So this will be the great Jim Morrison. And everybody's probably seen this, all you collectors out there. This was their debut. This was in 1967, of course. You can see there the guys are all here. Of course, there's Ray Manzarek down in front. There's Jim Morrison. There's John Densmore and Robbie Krieger at the back. Just so many good hits on this. It opens with Break On Through. It's got that cool John Densmore on drums, of course. It's got like a bossa nova beat to it almost when you listen to it. Again, it's such a great debut here. 20th Century Fox, Crystal Ship, Soul Kitchen, and of course the great Light My Fire. The long original version of the end on here, clocking in at 11 minutes 35 seconds rather. Of course, they're on the Electra label there. Yeah, I bought this in middle school, and it's still in great shape. I mention my dad once in a while in these videos. Of course, he was a jazz guy and you know, big band and orchestra music, and he tolerated rock music, but he often joked that he didn't mind the Doors. He actually thought Jim Morrison was a good singer. So, yeah, there he is, the great Jim Morrison. I have a whole bunch of Doors stuff, but I show the debut because it's my favorite. And if you want to start if you're new to the Doors for some reason, this is a really good start to debut. For a debut, you cannot go wrong. Again, it's like a greatest hits album. There's not a bad song on it. Back to the ladies, the great Susie and the Banshees. This was released in 1986, I believe. No, 87, I'm corrected here. They had a bunch of output up to this point. There she is, the goth princess herself. They've been around since 76, 77, around that whole Malcolm McLaren punk rock scene in London. Played at the 100 Club with the Sex Pistols and all those other bands like the Slits. And then they kind of refined their sound as the 80s tore on. More orchestration in the background, just different stuff. So the reason I selected this out of all my Susie and the Banshees records is this is kind of unique in that it's all covers. So there's, of course, the Doors a cover on here, Falling Up from the Doors. Your Lost Little Girl is on here. Of course, The Passenger is on this. Iggy Pop original. This Wheels on Fire. What else here? Strange Fruit. That's a Billie Holiday song, actually. So there they are, Susie and the Banshees. Through the Looking Glass, 1987. It's worth seeking out. And again, I know this is re-released on compact disc a couple of years after this album came out. Yeah, I've got a lot of Susie and the Banshees stuff. She's a great singer. I did see them live a year after this in 1988 in Montreal on the Peep Show tour. And that was a great show at the Theatre Saint Denis, it was called, that venue. But yeah, really great performance. And she's just beautiful on stage and has a beautiful voice. Yeah, it's all good. The great Susie Sue, and still performing. They're still around. There's been a couple of side projects like the Creatures. I think Budgie, the one guy, a band called the Creatures. I don't have any of that stuff, but yeah, they're still performing. Shifting gears. All you classic rockers out there, I'm sure you're familiar with this album. This is the Bad Company's self-titled debut, released in 1974 on the Swan Song label. That label was formed the year before by Led Zeppelin, actually, and managed, I believe, mostly by the Led Zeppelin manager, the great Peter Grant, the character that he was. So this, Paul Rodgers was the lead singer. At this point, Paul Rodgers had, of course, left Free, his first band, and was well established in the rock world as an incredible frontman and lead vocalist. I mean, the guy could sing a phone book and make it sound good. There's the band right there. There's Paul Rodgers right there, the man himself. Saw a concert recently on VH1 Classic, recorded in Las Vegas, I think, probably 3 years ago. And he looks great, sounds amazing for his age now. He's getting on in years. I don't know who from the original lineup here are with him currently, but again, his voice sounded really good, and I ended up watching that whole concert on television. It was very enjoyable. Of course, a lot of hits are on here. There are a lot of classic rock radio staples. Of course, this kicks off with Can't Get Enough, Rock Steady. My favorite on this is a ballad called Seagull. Really nice ballad. Yeah, again, just a really, really solid debut. Yeah, moving on with the great Mick Ralphs. It's just really, really good debut. I mean, you've heard all these songs before, and it gets repetitive because, again, you're in the car. If you listen to classic rock radio, I mean, Bad Company's always in the rotation, but there's a reason for that. It's because it's so good. So, self-titled debut, 1974, Bad Company. Almost at the end here again. I'm trying to keep my videos to 20 minutes, but that's stuff to do, and there's a lot of great stuff to talk about. So I'm, again, just highlighting some of my favorite vocalists. I have a lot. I probably have 25 favorite vocalists, but it was just what I was thinking of this week, and so that's what I'm showing today. Country and Western music, I'm a big fan. I got to that party kind of late. I got into it in my 30s. I only really enjoy 60s and 70s, a bit of the 80s. I don't do new country as far as the whole 90s onward. New country to me is Dwight Yoakam. That's about as far as I go. There are some interesting new independent artists like Sturgill Simpson. He's a pretty interesting guy. But I do like the classics from the 60s and 70s. So yeah, without further ado, there they are. The great George Jones and Tammy Wynette, the president and first lady of country and western, if you will. This is one of those, this came out in 1981. I don't know this label. It's one of those, yeah, TV special. You know, you'd see those commercials. Remember when I was a kid and into the 80s, only on TV. If you order now and you get this and this. I found this at a used record store years ago. Picked it up. It's in mint condition. Of course, the cover's very kind of hilarious to me. There they are, the royal couple themselves. This has everything on here. I mean, Golden Ring, After Closing Time, Southern California, two-story house. Their producer at the time, Tammy Wynette, had worked with Billy Sherrill. He was kind of Nashville's answer to like a Phil Spector, if you will. In the studio, he was just, his output was flawless. He could write songs, produce songs. You could always tell the Billy Sherrill touch because there'd be this brilliant orchestration in the background. And it wasn't standard honky-tonk music. He almost made it into orchestral pop country, if you will. I don't know how. I'm not doing it justice, but if you ever see the name Billy Sherrill, produced by Billy Sherrill, behind any country artist in the period, more predominantly in the 60s through the 70s and into the 80s. He only passed away, I believe, 4 or 5 years ago. It's usually solid gold. You can't go wrong with produced by Billy Sherrill. And of course, he had a long relationship with Tammy Wynette. not a romantic relationship, but in the studio, of course. And of course, when George Jones and Tammy got together, they were married for 5 or 6 years. I believe they got married in '69. I mean, when they weren't trying to kill each other, they were putting out great music. I mean, picture a couple of feral cats in a potato sack with some catnip and a bottle of whiskey, and that was their relationship. But when they could get it together in the studio, the output was outstanding. And that's why I like this compilation. I have a bunch of their stuff. I have a bunch of George Jones stuff on his own, and as well as a bunch of Tammy Wynette stuff too. I'm not going to show that again. I'm just going to show that highlight. But yeah, two great vocalists in their own right, and when you put the two together, it was magic. And I'm going to round out today with none other than old Blue Eyes himself, the great Frank Sinatra. This is released from 1959, called No One Cares. A bunch of Torch songs on here. Melancholy. This is with the band leader Gordon Jenkins. He predominantly worked with Nelson Riddle through this period. But this is with Gordon Jenkins. I can't really tell the difference. The orchestration is still magnificent. Of course, there's a couple of standards on here, like I Can't Get Started is an excellent song. Andy Williams does another good version of that. Came out around 65, 66. The late, great Andy Williams. I Can't Get Started. None But the Lonely Heart. Where Do You Go? Of course, the classic Stormy Weather. Here's That Rainy Day. This is just really, really great stuff. Another YouTuber, Cheap and Cheerful Record Collector. He did an All Sinatra video several months ago. And at that point, I was just a greatest hits guy with Frank. And kind of inspired me to seek out all this stuff on Capitol. I don't buy online. I still like to only go to the shops and dig in the crates. So I've had a lot of good luck the past 7 or 8 months, and I've got probably 8 or 9 of the Capitol releases, including this one, of course, No One Cares, released in 1959, the great Frank Sinatra. So again, folks, hope you're digging these videos. That was Sing, 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 some of my favorite singers. I hope you dug it. The weather's getting better. I'm looking out the window here. I had a nice run with my wife this morning. Sun's shining. It's the first day of spring. People are getting vaccinated. We're going to have a better summer this year, folks. Let's hope. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll see you next Saturday.